Alright, so today I woke up and I seen that there was a dev update for Railroader, so I thought I'd go through it. So this is on June 26th, and it's an update for M.O.W. I'm not going to go through the entire thing, I'm going to go through the more interesting things. Like, I'm not going to do this introduction because it was more of just a little, like, what we've done in the past summary. So, already, there is going to be a change with how milestone system will work. And the first thing I've already noticed with this first image is that we actually have a section of the bridge already. And now, currently in Railroader, if you were to come here to build the Ella Bridge as its milestone, it would only have the track end where the ballast is. It wouldn't extend out onto the bridge. This is extending out onto the bridge, as well as we have the M.O.W. passenger car that's in the game unused so far, and a very long line of cars. So they talked about like what loads are needed to rebuild a bridge, and they tried to get it more accurate. And the first values that they came up to build 13 miles of track between Bryson and Fonta Lake came up with 22 cars of rails, 139 cars of ties, and 1,429 cars of ballast. And that's definitely extremely unrealistic. Like, good lord, who the hell would pay I feel like there's some people out there that would enjoy that, but it's also $300,000 for the milestone between Bryson and Fonta Lake. And yeah, as they say, well, as exciting as it was to imagine moving 1,590 cars to and from the interchange, they decided that obviously it's bit too realistic for the game, because the game's also in a scale that it's very scaled down, which makes some areas a little iffy. So they brought out the actual number between all this stuff down to 10 cars of rails, 20 cars of ties, and 200 cars of ballast. It's still a lot, but it's only $15,000, which is fair enough. The current milestone for Ella Bridge, it has 3 stages, and all of those stages are around 2 grand. You can get them down to, no, they're about 1,000, and you can get them down to 750. So it was about $3,000 to initially get Ella Bridge in the start, which usually meant people were rushing, and then they didn't have the time to think about equipment for Bryson, because Bryson needs a dedicated shunter. That's just a non-negotiable, and the two starter locomotives does not allow you to have one locomotive there and one still at the sawmill, because the sawmill is a very good early game contract. Because you can easily do tier 2 on vanilla, and then if you use a mod, you'd probably end up wanting to go tier 5 because you want to use the full bit of that mod, unless it's too much for you. I don't give a care. I know there's plenty of sawmill mods out there, but the one that I personally use on the that I've put into our save that I will always run is I've put in a sawmill mod, and I plan to run it at tier 5 because we also have MVR's log cars. So they also come down, and the numbers are almost guaranteed to change. They say this is a work in progress. This is always going to be bound to change, and they want to know what the community thinks about that for milestones. Me personally, I don't mind that. 200 ballast cars seems a little bit on the high end, but at the same time, I don't know what milestone they're talking about. So they've been rethinking the milestones in terms of construction materials, have also caused them to rethink the boundaries of the most milestones. And I've always argued that, especially for example, like the Alaka branch, it's in 3 stages. In the second stage, it has like debris and tunnel material, which is for the tunnel along the Alaka branch, because there's a tunnel that's a good like probably 5. It's about like halfway. There's a tunnel, and then there's I believe a second tunnel. And I always said, hey, why wouldn't we be able to, like, every time we complete a part of the milestone, it pushes the track further, so we're delivering to the work site and not like 10 miles down the track to build a locker. Because in the third stage, it's more of like finishing like a locker itself. But when you deliver the cars, you deliver them to the Alaka Y. So I've always thought, why can't we have like modular milestones where it progresses as you complete it? So you have to push the cars further down the line so that they're where they need to be instead of where the milestone started. Because I always like that idea, because then you could build the first phase of a Alaka branch, even if you didn't want to service Alaka, you could build like the first phase, and then you would be able to use the Y more efficiently. Because with the current Y, you can only store about like 5, 6 cars in that Y if you want to use it properly. And Robertson Gap Tier 5 has about like 20 plus cars, I believe. I can't remember if I'm using a modded one, so I want to say 50, but I'm not sure. So they're rethinking the milestone in terms of like, and the real reward for to rethink the boundaries of those milestones, and even the reward for accomplishing a milestone, which is usually accessing more customers. Like in the game currently, you expand to Ella, you go and build the Ella Bridge. All of a sudden, you unlock Bryson. You unlock a good like 10 miles of track for about 3 grand. And then when you build the Fonta Lake Bridge, you get access to Robertson Gap, which is hands down the best early game money in the entire game, because the coal, you put the cars up there, make sure that you've got mining supplies, and then you leave it for the day, and then in the evening you grab whatever cars you've got and you take them back, and it will reward you so much for getting there. So I have a feeling they're like making it to where the milestones won't just jump to the next area like you, because further down in here it mentions that they want to change some milestones up. We understand that for many players, the western end of the map, which is lower customer density and heavier grades, may be too much to tackle. That's like once you get like to the Alaka Junction, it's a good like 30 miles track before you get to the next freight delivery. It's about 20 miles for the next passenger stop from Alaka Junction. It is wild. There is so much track you need to traverse. And then Red Marble, it has a maximum of 4.7% grade, which leaves not a lot of room because Snowbird pay like at Andrews, the interchange at Andrews, and just delivering the cars to Andrews from like Silver or East Wit. It's so much it's so much train that you'll usually need like 4 or 5 bankers on top of your normal power that got you from Bryson to that point. So you think about Red Marble, and we've got like the T1 mod, which can haul 10,000 tons on a 0% no problem. But then when you get to Red Marble, it can only haul less than 1,000 tons up that grade confidently without stalling at all. So you would need like 7 or 8 bankers just to get a 10,000 ton train up that hill, or get multiple T1s, which is definitely overkill for anywhere else on the railroad. They're going to address it with the following adjustments. They're going to change the Bryson Bridge and Fonta milestone to only run as far as Alaka Junction. And then they're going to add a second milestone from Alaka Junction, which is past Robertson Gap. So you still get Robertson Gap when you get Bryson Bridge. And then that takes you down to Almond. The Nantahala milestone will be after Almond. So you'll get access to Almond, which is the next station stop. It doesn't have any industries at the moment, but I feel like they're going to be potentially adding industries at Almond now, because they also said that, yeah, here, adding in interchange and a small freight house at Almond. So they want to make it to where Almond has a purpose now, because Almond used to just be a passenger stop with a tiny spur that could hold like 5 cars. It was pointless. So they're looking at adding a freight house and an interchange there, because there's definitely a bit of room that they can use there. So they might be making Almond an actual town instead of a single station and water tower with a passing track that is not at all long enough. So that'll be interesting. They're also going to rework Nantahala, Taliok, and Limestone at Hewitt. So at Hewitt there was 3 spurs, 1 run-through track. That's all you got at Hewitt for the contract. So there was 1 spur that was like from here to here, and then there were 2 that went out here. And it looks like they're just fully reworking it, adding a freight house and making it to where there's still a run-through track. You can still get a run-through, So shunting is still going to be decently easy, but it actually populates the milestone because a lot of people have made mods for this area to bring it up. And when they bring it up, they usually potentially increase it, which they're also wanting to provide more traffic for the place, which is really good. I would love more traffic in this spot because it seems very underused and underperforming. So you would get this area after you get to Almond. You'll need to do another milestone just to get to the bottom of Red Marble, and I assume it's Red Marble, and that gets you to Andrews, likely at the current point. So they're making the game a bit more modular. What I would love to see is, depending on the phase of, like, depending on the progress of the milestone, it potentially builds some track, or it progresses like the bridge. So like the bridges, like instead of being nothing and then something, you could get like the base of the bridge, like all the concrete pillars, and then you could get the steel framework, and then you could get the rails, and then that's Bryson Bridge done. Same with Ella Bridge, which it looks like they might be doing with the bridge. They might be making it modular to where you start with the wooden parts, and then you get the supports, and then you fill in the track. So the goal with these changes is to provide more options to the railroad, as well as make expansion a bit more rewarding. So instead of unlocking a further like 30 miles of track, you only get like 20. What I would still like to see is having to construct the bridge as a separate milestone, so you could build the track down to the bridge. Because the whole like gimmick about this area of track is that the obviously the area flooded, which made the old main line unusable, which is what you see go past Appalachia at Bryson. When you go down to Appalachian Hardwoods, that track that keeps on going is the old main line. You have to construct a new main line through the mountains. So I would still like to see that progression down to the bridge, and then constructing the bridge, and then connecting it to the old main line, because I think the old main line runs somewhere around there. I don't fully know this. I'm not a fanatic. So yeah, this is what they want for the Nasa Halo. Another thing they've also added is speed restriction signs and other challenges. They've adjusted details about M.O.W. Like, especially in this image, you can see you go from our known style of track to a very old looking track when you get towards the bridge on this turn. This is at Ella, I can tell, because of where this is. So this is the turn before Ella, and obviously there is no bridge, and it doesn't even look like there's buffers there. It looks like there is buffers there, but it's just like two wooden beams on the track. Help stop stuff. So it looks like you could be attacking this way, because this is in Bryson without the bridge being built. The track's here, which is something that I don't think is actually in the game. I don't think the track actually shows up until you complete the milestone. I'm no, I'm actually wrong on that. Yeah, no, I'm wrong. But yeah, I would love to tackle it from this side, like starting in Bryson and having to rebuild the bridge on the supplies that you're given at Bryson. So they've added these signs to reflect speed restrictions due to poor tracking, as well as here. This is it's Bryson. Oh, it's the Bryson Bridge, which is just over here. I like to call it the Bryson Bridge, but it's just the track up to Alaka Junction. They've added some display signs that make sense and don't overwhelm the player and pose a real challenge to. This is 25 right, so you're limited to 25 miles an hour when going into the right spur. Oh, I guess that means 25 reverse, because that also says 25R. So yeah, I'm guessing it just means reverse position. You are restricted. Because these two are spurs, technically. This one technically isn't a spur, technically it's a main line, but it doesn't go anywhere. They're also looking towards support on load storage and reevaluating starting equipment. So we might get more equipment to start with. We might get a couple of cars to help us start progressing the milestone as part of the tutorial. Because we might end up getting an M.O.W. car, maybe a couple of flat cars, a couple of box cars, a ballast car, so that we can start the milestone. Because it seems like milestones, you're going to have to pay for the equipment and then deliver it to that spot. And then I'm guessing when you like start milestone, it probably just pays for the workers to come and actually construct the place. They're also okay. We've also got scenery and equipment models and turntable. with previous updates, they've been working on equipment model updates, which there's been quite a few. Some of them have gotten reworks. Some of the locomotives have already gotten reworks on their models, and it looks like they're also doing the turntable. I it because the turntable looks different. I don't know what's different about it, but it definitely looks different. So, and then they've also added a control stand for it, so you can control it in third person, and then you can also just set where you want it to go instead of having to line it up and all that shit. Yeah, so they've added some new scenery structures, including a revamped turntable bridge. So yeah, they have revamped this turntable, so it does look different. Okay. They've also added the window. They've also added a window to remote control, as well as overlay interface, which allows you to drag the bridge to positions. And they're crediting Century of Steam for this design because I believe Century of Steam did this to where you would just select where you wanted to go and it would turn, because stuff like Railroads Online and all that, they have turntables that are very much a pain in the ass to line up. Railroader did something a little bit better where if you got it close enough, it would auto snap into the position. They've also they're doing a new map terrain format, because although they don't officially support modding support, they are providing a heads up that the map will change terrain data and format that uses and that uses a something to improve data load times. I don't know what this is. I'm not that tech savvy. I don't know too much about game development, but what I can tell is that might dramatically increase frame rate for lower end devices. So they're able to load things faster, so that they're able to load it and then they can just have it loaded and then the resources can go somewhere else, like watching the cars to do all that calculation, because the cars are still very laggy in the game. And it also says it expanded to simplify creating and manipulating the terrain for mods, as a lot of the community loves to do mods. I mean, I've got an entire world with mods, and they're going to share more details about it when the update is available on Experimental Branch. So Experimental is coming back for M.O.W. That's great. I love that, because then it allows people who want the M.O.W. stuff to knock into Experimental Branch, and then for stuff that for people who don't want to break their mods or anything can stay in stable. Me personally, I will most likely try to get all of the mods that I use to work in Experimental Branch as soon as possible to play the update. They've got a number of small enhancement and bug fixes queued up. Ooh, a surprise or two. We don't know when the update will be available. So they don't know when it's coming out, but at the same time, they've given us quite a bit of like information of what they've been cooking up, and I'm really glad that they've taken a couple of months to bring this, because there's a lot of really good features that I see here, as well as a rework to the terrain. One of the surprises I have a feeling will be is maybe a new locomotive, or maybe some new rolling stock. Because right now we only have one M.O.W. work car, which is only used in one mod at the moment. There's no mods that really use the M.O.W. car to do anything. Because when we were doing milestones with the M.O.W. car, the M.O.W. car will always spawn with your reporting marks. So you will technically own the car. But and when you complete the milestone to like have to return the car, it doesn't actually, you don't have to return it, because the milestone only checks for progression. It doesn't check if the cars were returned. So I think what they're trying to do here is make the M.O.W. car work while also not having that bug to where you could use it as a passenger car because it was technically owned by your railroad. But I like all the changes, and I will be happy to look at the game again. It's been a while since I've last played, but I might jump back into it again to try and I might try to drag my friend into it to get the save up and running so that we can maybe progress up to the up to Alaka itself, because I know we're close on our actual save. We just need to hope that people will join. So if you're watching this and you want to potentially join, we might not be running until this goes out on experimental. But if you want to join and help out, we can get a dedicated server up. We just need enough people to be able to successfully run the server. So I'll leave a link in the description to the Alice Springs Railroad, which is our save. And whenever I play the save myself, I will most likely stream it on Twitch because Railroad, in my perspective, is not really that much of a game to be able to record because you need to cut out so much of it, or else the video is gonna be like 3 hours long. Because there's so much stuff to do in Railroader, but it just takes so long. Like shunting, it could take you like an hour just to shunt some cars because of how many shunts you need to do because of your blocking or something, as well as driving the freight train. It can take up to 2 hours. It can take like 2 to 3 hours just to go from one end of the map to the other, and we only have from Andrews to Silver. There is still like another 14 miles of track to get to the start of the Murphy branch, and there's still like a good 20-30 miles of track past Andrews to get to Murphy and Old Murphy. Whether or not they go to Old Murphy will be entirely up to them, but I feel like at least going to Murphy